Hey friends, Axial GT here. There's been a lot of excitement and hype surrounding the game the day before. Let's talk about what we know, our concerns, and what we might expect. Let's get into this. Now before we dive into the day before, I do a mix of gaming and hardware news and reviews with a little commentary and sometimes some angry rant videos. So if that's just your thing, don't forget to like and subscribe for future Axial GT content. Let's make YouTube think that I'm a better YouTuber than I really am. With that out of the way, let's get started. Okay, the day before is an open world MMO survival game set in a deadly post-apocalyptic America, overrun by flesh-hungry infected, and survivals killing each other for food, weapons, and cars. You wake up alone in a world you no longer remember, setting out to find answers and resources to survive. Okay, that's the Steam description. The day before was announced back in January of 2021, if I remember correctly, and received a lot of praise, and that's when the hype train took off from the station. And we'll run down the system requirements for PC real quick. Okay, for the minimum, we have Windows 7, Windows 8, or Windows 10. The processor being an i5-4430 or an AMD FX 6300. 10 gigabytes of memory, and for your GPU, an NVIDIA GTX 960 2GB or an AMD Radeon R7 370 2GB. DirectX version 11, broadband internet connection, and 75 gigabytes of available space. Now for the recommended, the only thing that has changed is your CPU, memory, and graphics card. With your processor, it's recommended you have an i5 6600K or an AMD Ryzen 5 1600. 16 gigabytes of memory, and your GPU jumps up to a 1066 gigabyte or Radeon RX 580, 4GB. Now these specs look quite modest if you're looking at the trailers we have seen, but I'll get into the concerns later in the video. But I will say the game can look this good, given the engine they are using. I would just say don't expect to turn all the settings up to max if you're using a GTX 1060 or an RX 580. That's probably just not going to happen. Okay, first things first. Now I've seen a lot of comparisons being made between The Day Before and The Division and The Last of Us. And yes, I do see a little DNA being injected into The Day Before from those games. But I also see a lot of DayZ with vehicles in the trailers with a smidgen of State of Decay. So in other words, it looks like a little bit of a Frankenstein of the better aspects of all those games all rolled into one. Now so far this is a PC only title. But in March of this year, the developer Funtastic said it is possible to see eventually a PS5 and Series X version pop up. And while it's always true, only time will tell, I would say it really depends on how well it's received on PC once it launches. If it's received well, I would expect a console version in the near future. And if the game really crashes and burns, well, I would absolutely not hold my breath for a console release. You might wind up turning all shades of blue. Now as for plot, this is an MMO survival game. The goal is to survive. But there is a story. But in MMO survivals, they're not usually a major focus. They just kind of move the story along. But in this story, you wake up to find a world you no longer recognize. Sound familiar? Well, that's because it was used in The Walking Dead, where Rick Grimes woke up to find a world that he didn't recognize. But anyway, this game is PvP and PvE. But the devs said that it is a PvP focused game, and from the looks of it, a full loot PvP, since the trailer shows taking of the armor and weapons of one of the dispatched human foes. And also being a survival game, with the goal being to survive, we also have some metrics that we need to keep track of, like temperature, energy, and thirst. And the vehicles in the game will also have a fuel management system, from the looks of it, and a repair system. And of course you'll be able to craft many items to your heart's content. The game also has no release date set, only a tentative Q2 2021. Whether that might change, we don't know. And the Steam page says, only coming soon. Okay, so that's the basics of The Day Before. Am I optimistic? Yes, I'm optimistic, but cautiously optimistic. And I'll tell you why. Like a lot of gameplay trailers, this one is no different. It looks heavily scripted, even though at the beginning of the trailer it says it's in-game footage. From the narrations of what looks like fake character communications is, how should I say this nicely? Well, let's just say it's horrendously bad. Now that doesn't mean that the game will be bad. It just makes me question the authenticity of the game and its trailer. One of the real problems is this, Mytona. Don't know what that is? Well, don't feel like you're alone. I didn't know what it was at first either. Probably because I'm not a mobile game fan. Mytona is a Russian developer and publisher of mobile free-to-play games. Games like Seeker and Manastorm Arena of Legends. Now I will tell you that it really doesn't boost my confidence. It makes me wonder what kind of monetization scheme this game is going to have cooked up. My other concern for the game is The Wild 8, a top-down survival game that entered early access in 2017, also made by Funtastic. It received mostly positive reviews on Steam, so that sounds good, right? Well, not so much, because Funtastic abandoned it and never finished the game, and having no plans to finish the game. Well, in my eyes, that's bullshit for leaving players who supported the game in early access out in the cold with something that will never be finished. Okay, so one game not finished. Not the end of the world. What else have we got? Well, we have Dead Dozen, released on March 7th, 2018, 1 year after The Wild 8. And by March 20th of 2018, the game is dead, a broken mess, and never fixed. Another case of players left holding the bag of another unfinished game. Now, just as a side note, because I thought this was funny, reading through the Steam reviews, so you can check it out yourself, there was one user that wrote and complained to the developers about the unfinished game. And what did they do to make up for it? They sent him a key to a previous game, which is also unfinished. I tell you, some people. Now, as for my personal thoughts, like I said earlier, I am optimistic, but cautiously. So for me, I am tempering my expectations and I'm not going to fall in front of the hype train, because a person could get really disappointed, if not straight up run over by the hype train.
Scheiße!
And like a lot of games, it does have potential. If it wasn't for Funtastic teaming up with a mobile game company and their previous abandonment of other games, I might be more excited. But that really isn't where I'm at with my excitement level with The Day Before. I'm kind of, we will see. When I first watched the trailers, I was like, wow, I need to play that. But after doing some digging, I think I'd rather take a nap. But I will be keeping my eye on it and see where this train goes. But tell me, what do you guys think? I'm interested in hearing your thoughts. Tell me in the comments below. I read all of them. And just to show that I read every comment, I heart all of them. Because anybody can like the comments, but only I can leave the heart. That's why I do that. I've had many questions before of why, and that is why. That way you know I've read your comment, whether it be good or bad. And don't forget to like and subscribe for future Axial GT content. I really appreciate your support, and I appreciate you watching. Until next time, my friends, I am out of here. You all have a good one.